Okay, so in this video we're going to talk about something called the map function, and it's long. Look at all this. There's a lot of parts to it. So this is a function that actually takes 5 inputs. And this is actually a function that you don't need per se. Like, it's possible to do this without using this function if you just use like some algebra. But this is an extremely useful tool, and you're going to want to make sure you really understand how it works. You're going to want to make sure you have it saved somewhere as a reference, because you're going to use it often. Okay, so let me just kind of explain how it works. So remember that with the analog inputs, they go on a range from between 0 and 100. They have basically 1024 values. It actually is between 0 and 1024, or 1023, sorry. Okay, and if we want to take this input and make decisions with it, or not even make decisions with it, but let's say we want it to use to control an output like the analog out, or the PWM. Well, that only goes on a range from 0 to 255. So we want the maximum value to correspond with the maximum value here, and the minimum value to correspond with the minimum value here. And so this is where the map function comes into play. Basically what we're doing is we're taking this and mapping it to that. So if you think of this as like this line, and you think of this other one as like this line, you're basically finding the corresponding point on this line here. So you can see these lines have different lengths, but they have points along them that correspond. Okay, so like halfway through this one corresponds to halfway through this one. The minimum here corresponds to the minimum here, and the max here corresponds to the maximum there. Okay, and so this is essentially what the map function does. It takes a value along this line and finds the corresponding value along this one. So if this is like a quarter of the way along, then this right here represents a quarter of the way along too. Okay, so let's go ahead and see how this works. Okay, so maybe we have some kind of input. So we're gonna like take an input, okay, and we'll call it our input input value or something like that. And we'll just give it a value so that it accepts it. And we're going to map along continuum and then we're going to assign value to output. Okay, and so here's how the map function works. So we're going to say, so an input is between 0 and 1023 for an analog input. You can use this for other stuff too, but this is a great example of what to use. And then when we do the map part, we could map it to like 0 to 180 for like a servo motor. We can map it from like a number between 0 and 1. You could map it between 0 and 255, like for an analog out. Okay, there's a bunch of things you can do. So what we would do here, we'll say the output value. Okay, create a second variable for that. Okay, so what we can do is we can say, okay, output value is equal to map function, and we're going to take the value of the input value, and we're going to say where it is between 0 and 1023, and we're going to map it to somewhere between 0 and 255. Okay, And that should be enough to do it. Okay. And so you're basically outputting a value that takes our input somewhere between this range and maps with this somewhere between there. A couple of things you can do to tweak this. Let's say you want to flip the map. So like, looking back at this drawing, if we want the place at the end to represent this, and the place at the beginning to represent this, and so 1/4 would represent 3/4, 1/2 would still be 1/2, and then 3/4 would represent 1/4. Okay, we can flip it like that too, and the way we do that flip is we would just flip the code around. So let's say if I want 0 to match 0, I go like this. If I want 0 to match 255, I go like this. And if I want 1023 to match 0, 1023 now matches 0. Some additional things you can do is, maybe I don't want to use this full range. Maybe I only want it to go between 100 and 1000 and 255. So I'll set it between 100 and 255, or maybe 100 and 150. I can also use negative numbers, so negative 1000, negative 2000 maybe. I mean, this is an extremely versatile tool. It's very, very useful. Whenever you're outputting a range of things, this is the tool you're going to use. Okay?